The candles flickered against polished silver. Laughter echoed too bright and too sharp. Then her voice cut through it, calm and almost amused. "Not my granddaughter. Get out." Forks stopped midair. My daughter's red dress brushed the floor as she stood trembling. No one moved. No one spoke. I felt the heat of the fire and the cold in her hand. We walked out past the wreaths, past the lights, past the people who pretended not to see. Behind us, a chair creaked softly back into place, like the room exhaled without us. That was the moment I stopped believing silence meant peace. I was 8 when I learned that in our house, fairness had a pecking order. My brother Dan always came first. He was the golden one, Mom's shadow and Dad's echo, the child who could do no wrong and never had to prove he belonged. When he spilled juice on the white carpet, Mom laughed and called it energy. When I did the same, she said I should learn to be careful like your brother. Years later, that phrase still hums in my head like a nursery rhyme gone wrong, familiar and sweet on the surface but sharp underneath. At 12, I brought home a second-place soccer trophy. I can still feel the chill of the kitchen tiles under my bare feet and smell the lemon polish on the counter. Mom did not even look up from her coffee. "Second place is just the best loser," she said, turning a page of her magazine. The trophy sat there, shining too bright in the morning light, almost begging to be noticed. By dinner, it was gone, moved to the basement shelf beside the broken blender, like my effort belonged with things that did not work. Dad was not cruel. He was just quiet, an accountant who believed silence fixed things faster than words. If Mom was a storm, Dad was the eye of it, still and neutral, safe until you realized the air around him was not calm. It was empty. He would pat my shoulder and tell me to keep the peace. Peace in our house meant obedience. It meant swallowing your feelings before they showed on your face. Dan and I shared a hallway but lived in separate worlds. His door was always open, filled with laughter and the smell of fresh sneakers and cologne. Mine was closed, books stacked high, the sound of a radio turned low, the kind of small life you build when you do not want to be noticed. I learned to read lips from across the dinner table to anticipate Mom's corrections before she spoke them. Don't slouch, don't talk back, don't be dramatic. I learned to shrink so I would not be corrected for taking up space. At 16, when Dan crashed Dad's car, Mom said boys make mistakes. When I forgot to set the table, she said girls should know better. The double standard was never announced. It was inherited like the silverware we only used at Christmas. It sat in the drawer like a rule no one admitted existed, but everyone followed. One afternoon, Dan came home waving his college acceptance letter. The whole house lit up. Mom opened champagne. Dad took pictures. She kissed his forehead and said, "You make this family proud." When I got my scholarship a year later, she said, "Good. Now you can take care of yourself." Same kitchen, same lemon polish, same silence, same cold space in the room where approval should have been. Afterward, years passed, but the script never changed. Dan became the attorney with the right friends, the right suit, the right stories, the kind of man my mother could hold up like proof of her success. I became the afterthought, the one who manages, the one people call when something needs to be handled quietly and efficiently. Even after I built my own life in Denver, Mom's voice followed me, polite and distant, trimmed of warmth like she was editing herself down to the sharpest parts. Every call began with, "I don't want to bother you, but," and ended with advice I did not ask for, delivered like a verdict. I used to think if I worked hard enough, she would see me. If I stayed calm, she would soften. If I gave her a reason, she would approve. But every visit, every comment, every quiet dismissal etched the same truth deeper. I was not her favorite. I was her proof that she was right about me. That was the day I learned my place in this family, and it was a place that could be taken away without warning. Snow clung to the windshield like frostbite. The drive back from Aspen was silent except for the hum of the heater and the soft, uneven breathing of my daughter Lily in the back seat. Her red dress, once so bright, looked wilted under the gray light, like something beautiful left too long in the cold. Every few minutes she sniffled and wiped her sleeve across her face. I kept my eyes on the road. The mountain curves felt endless, each turn another chance for my thoughts to catch up with what had happened. When we finally reached Denver, the house was dark. I carried her inside, boots leaving prints on the tile. She did not ask for dinner. She did not look around. She just stood there, small, as if waiting for someone to tell her where she belonged. "Did I do something wrong?" she whispered. The question hit like a bruise I could not hide. I knelt and brushed her hair from her face. "No," I said softly. "You didn't." But even as the words left my mouth, I heard my mother's voice layered beneath them, calm and poisonous. "Not my granddaughter. Get out." Lily curled into the couch with her stuffed bear, eyes half open but far away. I sat beside her, coat still on, gloves damp with melted snow. The clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Ordinary sounds, but they felt wrong, too loud in a room that used to mean safety. I turned off the lamp. The darkness pressed in heavy, almost kind, like it was trying to hide us from what we had just survived. I could feel the pulse in my wrist, slow but steady, like something waking up that had been asleep for years. Upstairs, I opened my laptop, not out of impulse, but instinct. The login screen glowed against the dark. My reflection looked back at me, pale, tired, calm. I thought about the dinner table, the way no one spoke, the way my mother's words had landed like law. Lily stirred in her sleep. Her hand twitched toward the empty space beside her, like she was reaching for the comfort that should have been there. I realized then it was not just about what my mother said. It was about what everyone did not do. No one stopped her. No one even looked at me. That silence was not protection anymore. It was consent. I closed the laptop and went to stand by the window, watching the snow fall under the streetlight. Each flake vanished the moment it touched the ground. I knew I couldn't. The next morning, the city was wrapped in frost. Denver winters have a way of muting everything: traffic, voices, even thoughts. It is the kind of quiet that does not soothe, it sharpens. Lily was still asleep on the couch, a small lump under her blanket, the red hem of her dress sticking out like a wound that had not healed overnight. I brewed coffee I did not drink. The sound of the machine filled the kitchen like static. I opened my laptop again, the blue light flickering across my hands, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Not to write, not yet, just to feel the weight of control returning. I started with the small things. I opened my banking app and canceled the automatic transfers to the family fund Mom had set up years ago. The screen blinked, confirmation complete, one tiny thread cut. Then I logged into my email. Dozens of messages from work, a few from friends. One from my brother Dan with the subject line, "Are you okay?" I did not open it. He was not asking. He was checking the temperature before choosing a side, the same way he always had, the same way he learned from our father. By noon, I was sitting at my desk, surrounded by folders and papers that smelled faintly of toner and old dust. Legal work had taught me one thing: the system does not care who is right, it only cares who documents better. So I started documenting every voicemail my mother had left, every email dripping with condescension, every transfer, every suggested payment to the family trust. I gathered them all. There were spreadsheets, PDFs, receipts, old letters, and notes I had once dismissed as too petty to save, each one a quiet witness. I filed them neatly and labeled them like evidence because that is what they were. At some point, the heater clicked on. Lily's footsteps padded across the floor. She stood in the doorway, hair tangled, face soft from sleep. "Can we decorate the tree today?" she asked, her voice hopeful as if the night before had been a bad dream. "Not today," I said gently. "Maybe soon." She nodded and drifted toward her art supplies. I watched her thread beads onto a string, small fingers steady, careful, trying to make something pretty out of pain. The same kind of bracelet she had tried to give my mother. She was still building something fragile out of hope. I was building something stronger out of truth. When she was settled, I called Rebecca, my sister-in-law, Dan's wife. She answered on the third ring, her voice hushed. "Avery, I could hear the TV in the background, children's laughter, a door closing, a normal life continuing. I need to ask you something, I said. Did Mom ever ask you to sign anything about the estate? A pause, then a sigh that was not surprise. It was relief. You found out, didn't you? I just need the truth. She changed everything last year, Rebecca said. She said it was to simplify things. I didn't want to be part of it. But Dan. She trailed off. Avery, I'm sorry. It's not your fault, I said. But I might need your help. Rebecca's voice lowered. Whatever you need. When we hung up, I felt something shift, subtle, like the air before a storm. The plan was not revenge. It was realignment. Justice by paperwork. Truth by record. Consequences that could not be argued away. That evening, I backed up every file to an external drive and locked it in my desk. I drafted an anonymous email to the Aspen Philanthropic Council, the board my mother chaired, the same one that adored her family values and praised her generosity. I attached copies of the estate adjustments, the bank statements, the recording of Lily's trembling voice saying, "Grandma told me I'm not her granddaughter." I did not send it yet. Timing mattered. Timing always matters when the other side relies on charm and reputation. Lily sat beside me on the couch, holding her new bracelet. "Can we send Grandma a picture?" she asked softly. I looked at her, at the tiny beads reflecting the light from the lamp, and I felt something in my chest tighten and steady at the same time. "Not tonight," I said. "Tonight we rest." When she fell asleep, I stayed awake. I scrolled through old family photos, holidays, vacations, all smiles and symmetry. Every image looked staged, cropped to hide the imbalance. I closed them, then opened a blank message and typed 3 words into the subject line. Handled them all. Then I saved it as a draft, because even then I knew I did not need to explain myself to people who only listened when it benefited them. Days passed quietly. The world outside was still. I worked from home, answered calls, packed Lily's lunch, smiled when the teachers asked if we were okay, and said we were fine because we were learning a different kind of fine. Every night after she slept, I returned to my desk, checked, filed, typed, signed, deleted. Each click was a small act of reclamation. On the 5th night, Rebecca messaged me, "I have something you'll want to see." A scan arrived minutes later. Official minutes from a board meeting where Mom had discussed asset consolidation. Her handwriting circled her own name next to mine, crossed out. I stared at it until the lines blurred. The document was not surprising. It was confirming, and confirmation can be more painful than shock because it removes the last excuse to doubt yourself. That weekend, snow started again. I sat on the floor beside Lily, helping her sort beads by color. She smiled when I chose blue, her favorite. "This one's for you," she said. I smiled back. "Keep it. I already have something to wear." Upstairs, the external drive blinked faintly in the dark, steady and patient, like a heartbeat that refused to stop. That night, after tucking her in, I returned to the computer. The cursor blinked against the blank email like a heartbeat. I attached everything, every receipt, every log, every file. I added no long speech, no dramatic explanation, just a single line before the attachments. For review. My finger hovered over send. Somewhere a heater hummed steady and low. I thought of my mother's dining room, the light, the laughter, the silence. I thought of Lily's voice in that silence, the sound of something breaking that no one heard but me. Then I clicked. The sent icon flashed once, then disappeared. I leaned back in my chair. The house was quiet, except for the faint whir of the laptop fan and the snow tapping against the window. Outside, streetlights turned the falling snow to gold. For the first time, it did not look cold. It looked clean. The morning after I sent the email, the air felt thinner, as if the house itself was holding its breath. I poured coffee, sat by the window, and waited, not for a response, just for movement. Snow slid off the branches outside, soft thuds breaking the silence. By noon, the first vibration came. My phone lit up with the name I knew would come first. Mom. One missed call, then another, then a third. I turned the screen face down on the table. By 5 there were 29. The last voicemail began with her voice breaking. Avery, please don't do this. Please. Her tone was not sharp now. It was small, the kind of small that does not fit a woman like her, the kind of small that appears when control is slipping. I did not answer. I did not need to. The system was already moving. Emails flooded my inbox, forwarded statements, press requests, formal letters from the Aspen Philanthropic Council. Board members request urgent clarification from Mrs. Whitmore regarding financial irregularities. Her entire empire had been built on reputation. Reputation, I learned, collapses faster than love when people finally see what has been hidden behind good manners and perfectly set tables. By evening, the first headline appeared. Aspen socialite under review for estate manipulation. Her portrait was everywhere, perfect pearls and a perfect smile, the same face that told my daughter she did not belong. I imagined her sitting in her office, the one overlooking the frozen lake, clutching her phone with both hands. I could almost hear the tremor in her breath as she called Dan because she always called him first. Sure enough, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Dan. He did not wait for me to say hello. What the hell did you do, Avery? The board's losing their minds. Mom's name is trending. Do you realize what this means for the family? I leaned back in the chair. You mean for her? He exhaled sharply. For all of us. Her reputation. My practice. I cut him off. She made her choices. I just let people see them. There was a pause. I could hear his kids in the background, laughter, a door closing, a world he built under her shadow. Then his voice dropped lower. You didn't have to go this far. I almost laughed. She told my daughter to get out of her house, Dan. He went silent. A long beat, just static, then quietly. You really said everything? Yes. He sighed, half defeated, half resigned. Rebecca warned me this would happen. I should have listened. When the call ended, I felt no satisfaction, just stillness. The kind that comes when you stop bargaining with people who never plan to be fair. I walked to the window. The street outside glowed under the amber lamps. Cars passed in slow rhythm, unaware that somewhere up in Aspen, my mother's world was coming apart piece by piece. A new message arrived from Rebecca. It was a photo, a copy of an official notice. Effective immediately, Margaret Whitmore is suspended pending investigation. Underneath, Rebecca had written only 2 words. It's done. For a moment, I could not move. The image looked unreal, like something from someone else's story. Then Lily's small footsteps padded into the room. She rubbed her eyes, climbed into my lap, and rested her head against my chest. Grandma called again, she murmured. I didn't answer. I kissed her hair. That's okay. The phone buzzed again on the table. Mom's name lighting up one last time. I let it ring. The sound filled the room for a few seconds, then stopped. Silence settled heavy, but it did not hurt anymore. In that quiet, I realized justice did not sound like gavel strikes or apologies. It sounded like steady breathing and warm skin and a home that no longer felt unsafe. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, the lights hummed softly over our heads. Mom would call again, maybe 100 times. Maybe she would send letters or tears or promises. But there are things you cannot undo once the world sees the truth. That night, the house felt weightless. No voices, no demands, no echo of judgment traveling through the walls. Just the low hum of the refrigerator and the faint creak of the wooden floor when I moved. Lily was asleep on the couch, her small bracelet catching the lamplight, blue, green, gold, the colors of her own making. I sat beside her, phone in hand. 29 missed calls, 1 unread message from my mother. The preview line read, "Please, Avery, we can fix this." I stared at it for a long time, thumb hovering over the screen. Then I opened a new message instead and typed slowly, "You'd better start praying." I hit send. The sound was soft, almost delicate, like the click of a door locking. For a moment, I waited for guilt to arrive. It did not. The air felt clearer, sharper, almost clean. Through the window, the snow had stopped. Streetlights painted the world in quiet gold. I turned off the phone and placed it face down. The silence that followed was not empty. It was earned. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and stood by the sink. The reflection in the window looked different now, not softer, not harder, just mine. When I checked on Lily, she stirred, eyes half open. "Are we safe now?" she whispered. "Yes," I said, "we are." She smiled in her sleep, the smallest, most ordinary smile, but it held more peace than any apology could give. Outside, a car passed, its headlights sweeping across the walls before disappearing. The room dimmed again, leaving only the warmth of the lamp and the steady rhythm of our breathing. For the first time in years, I did not feel watched. I did not feel less. I felt done. Morning came slow, pale light spilling through the curtains. Lily sat on the porch steps, her bracelet glinting in the sun. I joined her, coffee steaming in my hands, the air still carrying the scent of snow. We did not talk. We did not need to. Across the street, someone's wind chime caught the breeze, a soft sound of movement where everything else was still. I looked at my daughter, at the calm she carried now, and thought this is what peace sounds like. Not forgiveness, not victory, just quiet. At the Christmas, my mom told my daughter, "You're not my granddaughter, get out." And then,